I'm Deanna DeCabrus from songwritinglessonsonline.com. In this video, I'm going to show you 3 techniques that will get you writing. 3 ways that you can get ideas going, that you can have starting points to develop songs, even if you're not in the mood to write and you're not feeling inspired and you don't have anything on the go. These 3 techniques come from a guide that I created that has a total of 10 different ways to start writing songs faster, and you can grab that from the link below. It's free. So we don't need to feel inspired to be able to do good work and develop ideas successfully. Think of your creativity and your songwriting as a skill, not a mood. Of course, it's lovely when you're in the mood and it's all flowing, but you can get better and progress and make work no matter what mood you're in. So there's this story that I really love about a pottery teacher, and she divided her class into 2. She got half the class to make as many pots as they could in the time available and not to worry about the quality, and the other half of the class to work on one pot and try and make that one pot as good as possible. So by the end of the class, the best pots had been made by the group that had done as many iterations as they could, simply because they were practicing. And this is definitely the same for your songwriting. So it's all about getting iterations and having a regular writing practice, regardless of whether each bit of writing you do turns into a song or not. That is the only way over time to reliably tap into what it is you want to say. So by the end of this video, you're going to have 3 reliable techniques that you can use again and again to generate ideas and get things going. Technique number 1, find the connection. So take a book, could be a novel or a play or perhaps a textbook, that might be a bit harder, and open it at random, stick a pin or your thumb down and write down the word or phrase or idea that you land on, and then do this again a second time, a different place in the book. Then you are going to set a timer for 10 minutes, and you're going to free write to try and come up with connections between those 2 things. So if one word was rust and one word was birthday, you might end up having something to do with the passage of time. This kind of thing works because it forces you to problem solve creatively and generate unique ideas, and you will always end up going back to the things that you're interested in, no matter what the prompt is. So the example I've got from you is from Cold Comfort Farm, which was a novel I had lying around. And the first line is, "Nor did the hovering presence of Mrs. Mother cast an atmosphere sufficiently dismal to spoil her appetite." The connecting phrase was, "Then your interest in the cinema, Mr. Neck, is entirely commercial." So I didn't spend 10 minutes on this, but I did a little bit of brainstorming, and the ways that I came up with for how these phrases could be connected were that perhaps Mrs. Mother wants to act in films, but she's stuck fixing lunch for passers-by. What can she do? Is there hope? It could be that the protagonist having the lunch is a scriptwriter, trying to make it. Mr. Neck is a gatekeeper. How is the scriptwriter going to deal with that? Is there going to be a conflict between art and commerce? What happens next? It could be that the protagonist started out with nothing but made it big. Did Mr. Neck help? Did he hinder? Was he involved at all? Maybe Mr. Neck has been a big shot for a long time, but his influence is waning. Why is that? How does he feel about it? You can see that the last one there, I'm concentrating on Mr. Neck. It is fine when you use this, when you kind of to take one aspect of what your free writing has thrown up and run with that. But try and connect it to begin with. And the types of connection that you're going to end up making are to do with you. Even though the prompt might seem arbitrary, where your finger falls is going to be arbitrary, the response, and especially your response over time, is not arbitrary. So you're going to see themes and patterns that you're interested in emerge, and that's why repetition is important and consistency is important. Technique number 2 is to use time as your creative lens. So that means using the past and the present and the future to explore scenarios. And there's 2 really great avenues for this. I mean, there's more than 2, but there's 2 I'll give you right now. And that is, I discovered something that was hard to accept, maybe a betrayal. So it's a loss of some kind, maybe a loss of innocence. And then the next is, I got down, but I got up again, resilience. So there's going to be a backstory, a present moment, and a future for either of those scenarios or themes and the situations in which they would occur. So if you took the idea of betrayal, you could write down a time when you found out things weren't the way you thought they were. You write down, first of all, how it was you thought things were, what it felt like to discover they weren't, and what happened next. And the song I Heard It Through the Grapevine is a great example of this, because it starts out with him saying, I heard it through the grapevine that you have somebody else, and this is how I feel about it. And I thought we were, I love you, and what are you gonna do next? Who are you gonna choose? As it goes to the future after that. And you can do this in lots of different ways with lots of different scenarios. What was what happened in the past to create this situation? What are our possible responses? Is there hope? Were things better before? Technique number 3 is the character archetype method. So we all recognize certain character types that pop up in pop culture, literature, like the rebel, the survivor, the wanderer. And you can choose one of these archetypes and give them a context, a story, a scenario, and then take an angle on them. So if you imagine the song, the gambler, that's a great example of an architect. What do they look like? How do they speak? What's the setting? And in the gambler, the angle is that the singer is describing this interaction with this gambler archetype character. And the gambler gives him some advice relating to card games. You've got to know when to hold them, know when to fold them, know when to walk away, know when to run. Don't count your money when you're at the table. Those reflections are given a bit of extra mystique because we're told that the gambler passes away after uttering them, so they're his last words. And that advice about knowing when to stick with something, knowing when to move on, not counting your chickens before they're hatched, that is fairly universal advice, but it's all told in this context of card games and gambling with those images. But there'd be many other great images or other scenarios that we could use to transmit some of those ideas. So it's a kind of really cool example of something being specific but also universal. Sometimes we might be in a scenario in our own lives where the energy of a particular archetype appeals to us really strongly, or we feel really drawn to a particular archetype, whether it's to do with our own situation or what's surfacing at that moment in the culture. And that can be satisfying to tap into that and create this, really get into that energy of that particular archetype and give it a home. So, 3 techniques to recap. We've got find the connection, sticking a pin or your finger in 2 places in a book, finding connections between the words, phrases, or ideas. We have using time as a lens to explore a scenario, what happened in the past, what's happening now, what does the future hold, and they don't have to be presented in that order. And we have archetypes. So these are just 3 of the 10 creative techniques in my free guide, and you can repeat any of these 3 endlessly and get lots of new ideas, and you could definitely start and finish full songs using them. There are a whole bunch of other techniques, include the cut-up technique made famous by David Bowie, how we can use word clouds, how we can use certain types of visual prompts, how we can use titles to give us song starters. So definitely download that if this is something you're interested in improving in, or if you have ever gotten stuck. If this helped, give it a like, hit subscribe, and tell me in the comments which technique you're going to try first. I'm Deanna de Cabarrus from Songwriting Lessons Online. Thank you very much.